There's something interesting going on with Immutable X with the IMX token. On some days when nothing is happening, IMX shoots up, and then on other days it suddenly comes crashing back down. The question is, where is the price headed from here? What's causing all of that volatility? Let's have a look at some metrics most people are not considering. Now, you might be aware that IMX was one of the worst performers in the last year. Among the top 100 cryptocurrencies, Immutable X went down by 67%. There are only 3 other altcoins that performed even worse. And this bad performance doesn't come out of nowhere. The circulating supply of Immutable X tokens expanded quickly, much faster than the demand did. And of course, whenever supply is larger than demand, price is coming down. But what's interesting is that the supply expansion will come to a halt very, very soon in October of this year. So 5 months from now, we have unlocked all of the IMX supply. The fancy word for this is Tokenomics. It's just a matter of how quickly is the supply expanding, who gets a token, and how likely are those tokens going to be sold on the free market. And so when we ignore tokenomics, things like this come out. So this is a video made by Jesse Eckel last year, how he was very bullish on IMX. And he did put the money where his mouth was. He had several hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of IMX, and he bought it around the time when the video was published. But are things finally turning around? Because the price is now recovering, right? It's one of the top performers today, for example. From the price bottom on the 7th of April, we went up by 75%. And on chain, we've got 94,000 holders. Unfortunately, not all of those holders matter. The unlocked treasury supply stands now at 39%. This could get sold off at any point. There's also another 14% just for the project development. So this is again insiders. That's the team that's paying itself salaries from that supply. But I've not just been talking about supply. In the end, it's the balance of supply versus demand that determines the price. So let's have a look at the demand. Let's have a look at the number of holders over time, both retail investors, but also whale investors. Now, Jesse Eckel definitely used to be one of those whales. The number of whales is going up. So this is now the number of wallets that hold at least 200,000 IMX tokens. So that's roughly $100,000 worth of the token. It does increase over time, but it's not rapid growth. We went from 216 whale wallets at the beginning of the year to 230. So roughly 1% additional whale holders per month. In the middle, we see the number of medium-sized investors. So that's now at least $10,000 worth of the token. That did not grow in the last year. And the number of retail investors even went down. So there is a bit of accumulation happening by the heavyweights at the expense of the broad masses. In general, that's a good sign, right? The smart money is buying, the not so smart money is getting out. I've got the impression though that a lot of those whales just bought IMX for market making against the derivatives market, against the perpetual futures, because trading volume still tends to be high. So you see here is the number of buyers and sellers per day. This is not declining, so that's good for market making. And we can see that when the price goes up fast enough, how short sellers enter, and that then puts downwards pressure on the price. So this is now the funding rate. At one point, the shorts were willing to pay the longs 0.5% for betting on falling prices of IMX for just 8 hours. So annualized, that's hundreds of percent that the shorts were willing to pay the longs. The open interest on the derivatives market is also very much fluctuating. And whenever this is high, the price also tends to be elevated. Since it hasn't yet normalized to the historical levels, I think IMX, at least short term, is more likely going to go down than go up from here, at least relative to Bitcoin and Ethereum. Short liquidations mainly happen for the longs. So in other words, the price suddenly crashes down because maybe insiders are selling the token. Now it's a bit more balanced. Still, most trading action nowadays happens on the perps. The number of holders doesn't really change that much anymore. This is now 1 month of number of retail investors over time. So that's now at least $1,000 worth of the token. Again, directly on the Ethereum chain. Now here's my problem with IMX. It seems like all of the token inflation is gone, but I've got my doubts. The treasury still holds a lot of the supply and they might sell that supply at any moment. What I think is that the team just held on for the token a bit longer, or maybe they did some over-the-counter deals with other third parties that have to wait for a bit longer. But I don't think that the selling pressure is over, contrary to what this graph suggests. This is IMX relative to Bitcoin, and since December of 2021 to today, it underperformed by 94%. And I think that the recent negative trend is likely going to continue. I'm not betting on falling prices just yet, but if IMX outperforms again by another 40%, this might be a nice short opportunity. The market in general though is very bullish, right? Everything is going up. So when we short something like IMX, it's important to buy at least equal amounts of Bitcoin at the same time. So in the end, the position is delta neutral. That means when IMX goes down, Bitcoin goes up. And because IMX underperforms Bitcoin, the net position should go up. The idea is to bet on relative performance. It's not to bet on US dollar valuations coming down. I'm just talking about IMX doing worse than Bitcoin. I'm not saying that IMX will go down in US dollars, because let's say Bitcoin goes up by 50%, then IMX can go up also by 20 or 30%. But just because of that delta, because of that underperformance of say 20 percentage points, we can already make money if the position is set up the right way. Now, it appears as if everything is going up in this market, but it's not as easy. It's still in the end a player versus player game, and a lot of people got wrecked before this rally. The top performing crypto categories right now are Politify, but also picking up now Solana memes and AI agents, all the kind of tokens that did very well just a few months ago. Now, especially with the smaller altcoins, it's not a fair game. It's player versus player, but it's also insiders versus the public. The public doesn't know as much as the insiders, and so on average, the average retail investor does lose money. It's really a rather mixed picture. Have a look at this. This is Solana's trending tokens. There's some green, there's some red, but in the end, even during the meme coin hype in the last few months, Bitcoin dominance continued to go up. So clearly, it's not enough to just buy a representative basket of altcoins and hope for those to outperform Bitcoin. If we speculate with altcoins, we have to be somewhat active. Otherwise, we just go with BTC. BTC tends to do better than most altcoins most of the time. Now, very often the market makers and the insiders, they get away with this, right? For example, the Ohm token crashed by more than 90%, a drop of 4.5 billion. Up to this day, we still don't know who profited from this crash. The money is not gone, it's just held by somebody else. Now, what can we do in a situation like this? I think the best approach is to try to be as close as possible to the insiders. And that's the nice thing about the blockchain, right? We can see the official transactions. And if we do a bit of digging, we can find out the wallets of people that move prices. For example, over here, we've got transactions of Kyle Chessy and of other influencers that bought SPX 6900 very, very early. When we found the wallet of an insider, we can get notifications whenever those people buy and sell something. And because of that, I made a video on SPX 6900 in the early days. And that video was not that popular because most people didn't know about the token at the time. But it came out when the price was still at 10 cents. It then made this parabolic run of 1,300% and of course crashed back down with the rest of the market. But I try to be early on this channel. I try to cover tokens that are bought by the insiders that still have upside potential. So feel free to subscribe over here. Now here's another example, Fartcoin. We got purchase notifications at 4 to 5 cents and subsequently there was a 4,000% run, then of course our correction, but still from that signal the price is up almost 2,000%. It's all a player versus player game. The insiders make most money. And the way we get all of those signals is again by finding the wallets of people that influence the prices. So again, with the example of Kyle Chessy, we've got 12 of his wallets. In total, we track more than 419 wallets. We find the wallets through various approaches: the NFTs that they hold, the current holdings that they might make public, related transaction wallets, all kinds of different approaches. There are dedicated tutorial videos on how to find influencer wallets available as well. What you're seeing over here is the paid Telegram channel. So we've got a dedicated chat just on finding new influencer wallets, where we then add them to our tracking channel. So that tracking channel is also available, of course, to the premium members. And so the closer we are to the people that move prices, the more we can mimic their performances. So over here, what we see is various trades that have been made by the community. Of course, I'm not sharing the exact tokens that have been traded, but yeah, those are some examples of what is achievable with the right information. So feel free to check it out. It's currently $125 per month. The link is down below. It's thebitcoinstrader.com. You will also see a link to the premium membership now directly popping up on this video. Again, if it's your first time here, feel free to subscribe. A like would be very much appreciated as well. It helps the channel grow. See you next time on YouTube, or see you in premium. Cheers.